People think the moment you make it with money is loud. $1 million, 6 figures, some dramatic number that finally proves you're doing well. But the real shift is quiet, almost boring. And most people walk right past it without realizing what they missed. There's a number where your relationship with money fundamentally changes, not emotionally, mechanically, and it's nowhere near $1 million. It's $20,000. Not because it's impressive, but because of what it unlocks. Right now, money feels heavy for most people. Every decision has weight. Every bill feels personal. Every unexpected expense feels like a threat. That's not a character flaw. It's a system response. When you don't have a financial buffer, your brain doesn't think in years. It thinks in days, sometimes hours. You don't ask, is this the best option? You ask, will this keep me afloat? That mindset quietly shapes everything. Your job choices, your spending habits, your tolerance for bad situations. And that's why this topic matters right now. Because most financial advice skips this phase entirely. It talks about investing strategies, passive income, long-term returns, but it ignores the invisible barrier that decides whether any of that advice even works for you. Here's how the system actually works. Wealth doesn't grow in a straight line. It grows in thresholds. Think of it like pushing something heavy uphill. At the bottom, progress feels almost impossible. You push hard, nothing moves. You start wondering if you're just weak. But you're not weak, you're early. At a certain point, momentum kicks in. Not dramatically, just enough that the rules start changing. $20,000 is the first time gravity stops working against you. Before this point, every dollar you save feels fragile. It's earmarked. Rent, repairs, emergencies you haven't had yet but already fear. That's because your money has only one job: defense. After this point, money gets a second job: offense. And the shift isn't just about having more, it's about time. Psychologists call the earlier stage scarcity mode. When resources are tight, your brain narrows its focus. You become efficient at surviving, terrible at planning. This is why people stay in bad jobs longer than they should, why they accept the first offer, why they avoid risk even when the math says the risk is reasonable. It's not lack of ambition, it's lack of margin. Now here's the uncomfortable part. Research consistently shows that even a small emergency fund dramatically improves financial decision-making, not because it pays bills, but because it buys breathing room. Once your savings cover several months of expenses, your brain stops scanning for danger and starts scanning for options. That's the real upgrade. Let's talk numbers, because this is where the illusion breaks. Say you're saving $1,000 a month. No tricks, no windfalls, just consistency. Getting to your first $20,000 takes time, roughly a year and a half. That stretch feels endless. Progress is slow, returns barely register. Most people quit here, not because they're lazy, but because the feedback loop is weak. But once you cross that line, something subtle happens. The second $20,000 comes faster, not because you changed your behavior, but because your money joined the effort. Your savings start producing results alongside your work. Not life-changing results, but noticeable ones. And noticeable changes behavior. This is the compounding effect people talk about, but rarely explain honestly. Compound interest doesn't feel magical at small scales. A percentage of almost nothing is still almost nothing. But at $20,000, returns stop being theoretical. They start showing up as real dollars. Money you didn't trade hours for. That's when the system reveals itself. It's not that wealthy people have access to better math. They're just operating at a scale where the same math finally matters. 10% on $2,000 is a nice dinner. 10% on $20,000 changes how you think. And that mental shift cascades. You stop obsessing over tiny expenses, not because you stopped caring, but because you understand leverage. The difference between generic cereal and brand name cereal doesn't move your future. Housing decisions do. Career decisions do. Investment consistency does. When resources are scarce, small decisions feel huge. When resources stabilize, big decisions finally get attention. This is why people with money often seem relaxed about things that stress everyone else out. It's not ignorance, it's prioritization. And this carries directly into your career. Without savings, your job owns you. Every paycheck is a leash. You tolerate behavior you shouldn't. You avoid negotiations you deserve. You stay quiet when speaking up would help. Not because you lack confidence, because the downside feels catastrophic. With a financial buffer, that dynamic flips. You don't become reckless, you become credible. You can say no, you can push back, you can walk away if needed. Most of the time you never do, but the option changes how you show up. Confidence is different when it's backed by reality. People respond to that. Managers notice it. Opportunities follow it. This is the feedback loop nobody warns you about. Financial stability improves behavior. Improved behavior improves outcomes. Improved outcomes accelerate stability. But this is also where people sabotage themselves. They hit this milestone and treat it like a finish line, a reward, a permission slip. New car, lifestyle upgrade, bigger commitments. And just like that, the buffer disappears. That $20,000 was never the prize. It was the engine. Spend it, and you're back at the bottom of the hill wondering why things feel heavy again. Here's a reality check that makes people uncomfortable. Over a lifetime, many people spend more on cars than they would need to reach financial independence. Not luxury cars, normal ones. Payments, insurance, maintenance, fuel, month after month, decade after decade. And the irony is brutal. The thing that makes you look successful is often the thing slowing you down the most. The moment you start thinking in opportunity cost instead of monthly payments, the illusion breaks. That purchase isn't just what it costs today, it's what it could have become. This isn't about deprivation, it's about clarity. Once you understand what money can do when left alone, impulse spending loses its shine. Not because you're disciplined, but because the trade-off is obvious. And eventually, a strange thing happens. You stop wanting half the things you thought you wanted, not because you can't have them, but because they don't buy what you actually care about. Time, options, peace. $20,000 won't make you rich, but it will move you into a different game. A game where money isn't constantly yelling at you, where decisions aren't emergencies, where progress compounds quietly in the background. And the question isn't whether this number is magical. The question is why so few people are taught to protect it once they reach it. Because once you understand what this threshold really does, the real risk isn't failing to get there. It's reaching it and not realizing what you're holding.